reputable historian who also knows Islamic tradition, did he think the Holocaust was mutawatir? And he said, yes, I would say it was mutawatir. So for me, that's enough to say that if you're denying that, you're undermining our tradition. Because what you're saying is mutawatir evidence is not proof of something. So that is what, now all of the Quran is mutawatir in terms of its source. In terms of its meaning, right? Because you have qat'iyyatun nas and dhaniyatun nas. The qat'iyya is that it's absolutely sound in its source. That's mutawatir. But the meaning of the text, if all of the ulama agreed on it, and we had a hadith and the Prophet said this is what it means, then we would have to say, that's the meaning of the text. But if there isn't that agreement, then it becomes dhaniyya, it's probable to mean. But the meaning is exhausted. And this is why our scholars exhausted the meaning possibilities of language. No human civilization in history, and I would call as my authority and appeal to authority, is a legitimate form of argument. It's the weakest according to scholastics, but it is a legitimate form of argumentation, appeal to authority. Franz Rosenthal, one of the great Jewish Orientalists, wrote a book called Knowledge Triumphant. And in that book he argues that no civilization in human history was more committed and had as its central theme and purpose the acquisition, preservation, development, and transmission of knowledge. That this is the Islamic civilization. It was about knowledge. And so it is not fortuitous that the Quran begins with Iqra. It is not fortuitous that the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ مُعَلِّمًا. I was only sent to teach knowledge. مُعَلِّمًا. تُعَلَّمَ عِلْمًا. The masdar is knowledge. I was sent to teach knowledge. All of these things are at the core of what the meaning and purpose of Islam is as a religion. It is about knowledge. And the highest knowledge is ma'rifah. So it has levels. We call these maratib al-ilm, the degrees of knowledge. This civilization largely argues that knowledge is empirical. That's only one of three forms of knowledge that our civilization recognizes, because we have empirical knowledge, we have rational knowledge, but we have revealed knowledge. In this civilization, somebody like Dawkins, who will concede to rationalism somewhat, but his central argument is that knowledge is empirical. It is what we can feel, sense, taste, touch, what we can deduce rationally from empirical evidence. So they only believe in deductive, inductive reasoning. They don't allow for deductive reasoning. They don't believe in universal truths that we can argue from. They only believe in probabilistic, empirical truth, and that knowledge changes as time progresses and we discover new things. When the black swan is discovered in Australia, all of the English naturalists were forced to concede that the swan, by definition, is not white. There can be a black swan. It's called the black swan problem in logic, deductive reasoning. So the Muslims, because that central theme was knowledge, they set out to master the language skills, the language art, in order for them to understand what the possible meanings of revelation are. And then they divided meaning into what they call isharat, which are, these are like, isharat are indications as opposed to signification. So they differentiated between significations, what the ma'ani were, which are the zahira, the outward meanings, and what the inward spiritual meanings were. If they went into the inward spiritual meaning entirely, dismissing the outward meanings, they were called batiniya, esoteric. If they went to the outward meaning, denying the inward meaning, they were exoteric. They were called harfiya or zahiriya, people that deny that meanings are more than just the apparent meaning, the zahirun nas. There's other meanings, tanbihun nas. There are isharat that come. So because they exhausted these language skills, Arabic has, the Quran has limited significations in terms of what we can understand. When Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu attaqullaha haqqa tuqatihi, there are limitations to the outward meanings that we as human beings that use language to communicate can understand from that. The inward indications, the isharat, inexhaustible. You can speak about them until the day of judgment. But the outward signification, they've been exhausted merely by the meanings of those words that have been collated in all these massive, incredible dictionary works that our scholars did. I mean, the Muslims, they created dictionary science. No dictionaries before Islam. The Hebrews didn't have dictionaries for Hebrew. They learned that from the Muslims. The Chinese had very, very esoteric dictionaries that weren't really practical in any sense of the modern idea of a dictionary. But the Muslims, right from the get-go, they established what words meant and continued to develop that. So we know every word in the Quran, we know what it means, unless Allah hid that from us, like Alif Lam Mim. Are those words? Are they letters? What we do know from that is, unlike Western linguists who will argue in linguistics that phonemes have no meaning, that language is actually based on meaninglessness. What the Quran is refuting there is, no, it's meaning all the way down. The letter has meaning. The sound has meaning. It's meaning all the way down. This is about meaning. And we are interpreters of meaning. It's our nature to interpret. We're constantly listening and we're interpreting and we're understanding. That's human nature. We do this constantly. And language is the great gift. So the Quran, and you know, we have these people, Hagarites, and I mean, most of this idea has been completely dismissed, even in Orientalist literature. But you will have articles in the Atlantic Monthly, not that